if you're of a certain age and you just signed up to do a 1,000-mile ride in 24 hours in aid of charity, and you still like your speed, but you also love your comfort, what bike would you do it on? How about this? It's the BMW K1600 Bagger. Welcome to Gear Talk. Hello. Welcome on board BMW's K1600 Bagger. And in this video, I'm going to try and give you the most in-depth review possible. The reason why I'm in a position to do that is because I've spent literally 24 hours in the saddle. I've just finished the RBLR 1000, a 1,000-mile ride in 24 hours in aid of the Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal, organised by the Iron Butt Association. Check out the video coming soon. And this was the bike I did it on. What a machine. So without further ado, let's take it onto its natural environment, shall we? The good old motorway. For those of you that don't know, this is a 1600cc, well 1649cc inline 6 by BMW. And what a stonking piece of kit it is. Just listen to this engine. Alright, so now we'll settle down. This is motorway speeds, mid-70s, which predominantly is where most people are going to be spending their time on board one of these beauties, aren't they? Well, what I can tell you, 6-speed gearbox with a quick shifter, or as BMW like to call it, the Gear Shift Assist Pro. Now what that Pro means is that not only have you got an upshifter, you've also got a downshifter with an auto blipper. And I've got to tell you, it is, without a shadow of a doubt, the smoothest one I've ever used. The engine itself, well, realistically that's the party piece, isn't it? BMW's 1600 stonking engine. Motorway speeds, 3,500 revs. It's purring, you barely notice it. And yet if you really want to get a shimmy on, you crank open the taps and this thing will howl like an old M3. Trust me, I used to have one and it sounds exactly like that. You've got waves and waves and waves of torque with this engine. You're not having any problems whatsoever, and it kind of doesn't matter what gear you're in, it's there. BMW say that it's good for 160 bhp and 170 newton meters of torque, which by any stretch of the imagination, that's healthy. And in most cases for baggers, bikes in this style, it's twice what some of those bikes have got. But the real party piece about it is that 70% of that torque is available from 1750 revs. That's astonishing. Now what you get for that is pretty much any gear you choose, you've got power. When I was doing the 1,000-mile challenge in 24 hours, as I'd only just got onto the bike and I was still getting used to it, I found myself at one point pulling out of a roundabout at 40 miles an hour in 6th gear, and I thought I was still in 3rd. The shove that this machine's got is phenomenal. but it's very usable power. It doesn't try and throw you off the back of the bike. It just progresses and just shoves and shoves and shoves without catching you off guard. It is silky, silky smooth. When it comes to motorways, from a riding point of view, in the front the bag has got a slightly smaller screen, in fact, well, a considerably smaller screen than the GT or the GTL, which is what this bike is loosely based on. Because of that, you do get a bit of wind buffeting. This screen, which is electrically adjustable, oh, there you go, does take away most of the buffeting, but not all of it. I'm 5'8", average size, 32-inch leg, inside leg, and the seat, sorry, let's go back to the screen. What you're getting is just about forehead height is where the wind starts to hit you. It's not bad, but over long journeys it can be slightly fatiguing. Not massively, but slightly. I think an added bonus, if you were going to buy one of these bikes and take it on tour, just get yourself a little flip screen at the top, something like an MRA Vario screen, something like that would take all those problems out of the way. And obviously when you're on a really nice summer's day and you're not belting along, you can lower the screen and get some really nice fresh wind. None of the air is turbulent at all. What I did notice though, when I was on the trip, is as streamlined as the bike is and great at cutting through air, it is susceptible to side winds. And I guess that's partly because of the sheer size of the thing, and partly because it's got a lot of there's no real gaps, there's no frame for the wind to run through. It's a big bike, it's nearly 2.5 meters long. You know, it's it's going to get caught by the wind, but you live with it and you learn to deal with it. So what's she like to ride then? Hey, this black beauty, what is she like to ride? Well, I can vouch, this saddle, all day long comfort, because I've done that. It is without shadow of a doubt the most comfortable saddle I've ever sat on. I call it a saddle because it's not a seat, it's more like a throne. It supports you where it needs to, and there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of space for you to move around on. It's a one-part seat, and you've got a nice lip at the back, just at the base of your coccyx, where you can use as almost like a miniature backrest. So that works. The seating is absolutely astonishing for comfort, and it's heated, both for front and for rear. What else can we talk about? The mirrors, they're fantastic. They're almost like a car mirror. Brilliant all-round visibility. To adjust them on both sides, it's slightly damped as well, so it doesn't click. It's got that lovely damping that makes you think, yes, you can tell this is an expensive bike. Little details like that. But also what you've got at the edge of the mirror is a little fine line down it, so that you've got extra visibility on both sides. Beautiful little touch. This particular model doesn't come with the sat nav. That's my own sat nav, but thankfully, because I ride a BMW, well spotted, shouldn't have to flash you to move you out of the way, should I, sunshine? Yes, the sat nav, because it's a BMW sat nav, it's interchangeable with a lot of BMW bikes, which is superb. In this particular case, you press a button at the front when the ignition is switched off, a panel raises up, you slot your sat nav in, goes down, that's it. Set it, forget it. When you switch the bike off and you lock it up with the central locking, it locks the sat nav in place. Brilliant. Excellent position for it to be in, just below eye line, but you don't have to take your eyes off the road to see it, with the full compatibility of the Wonder Wheel, the Whiz Wheel, whatever you want to call it. So you can operate everything from that wheel. Handlebars. Well, in that traditional sort of bagger style, you've got a bit of a sweeping handlebar that kind of comes back towards you, and I'm guessing by the looks of it, because it's got a clamp on it, there's going to be a little bit of adjustment in there as well, so you could move it to suit. I couldn't tell you how much there is because I haven't done that, but it looks like you can. Your switchgear is typical BMW fare, all on the printed circuit board. I think that's what they call it, PCB. It's very intuitive. There's quite a lot of buttons, but over time you do get used to them, especially if you've come off a BMW onto this. A lot of this will feel very, very familiar. When you dive into the actual workings of the electronics, what you find is a myriad of settings for all sorts of different things. You've got, let's have a think what you've got. So much. You've got dynamic stability control, suspension settings. Now you've got a mode button which is dedicated for your suspension. You've got rain, road and dynamic on this particular baby, which will vary the amount of power that's coming through the throttle to the back wheel. You've also got ABS, you've got 6-axis IMU, which gives you cornering ABS. I've not been in a position where I've needed to use it, thankfully, but rest assured it is there, and from previous experience of using BMW's ABS system, I think that will work pretty damn good. The petrol tank itself, it's a 26.5 litre tank. Now on BMW's website it says that's good for about 260 miles. Well, as we all know, in real world terms, those figures never marry up anyway. What I can tell you from my experience is over the 1,000-mile journey, the bike averaged 46, just over 46 miles to the gallon, and that's with a mixture of 30 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour, 60 mile an hour and motorway speeds. Not thrashing the pants off it, but getting a nice pace on. So it's healthy, but I've got to take into account that when I picked this bike up, it only had 600 miles on the clock. So it wasn't even run in properly. And the chances are that will get better with time. But it is a 1600 litre engine. 1600cc engine. And people that have got 20,000 and north of 20,000 to spend on a bike like this, I'm guessing they're not really going to be too worried about that. The actual riding position I find is really, really comfortable. The bars are nicely spaced out, and because they're pushed back towards you because of this rather funky looking handlebar, you do find yourself sat up in quite a nice position. Your back is fairly straight and your knees, they're at a nice angle. They're not tucked up, they're not Sports Tour tucked up, but they're not GSA stretched out ever so slightly. It's just another comfortable all-day riding position. But the one thing, the glaring omission that I found, is that for a bagger style, and I've seen it on the pictures, you can get some floorboards, running boards, whatever they're called, which I think would really enhance the looks of this bike. But for some reason BMW have decided to omit those, and you have to pay extra for them. Well, for me that's a bit of a miss. It is a bagger, and baggers are associated with that kind of thing, so I would have expected to see those running boards. And in all honesty, I wish I could have had them on the trip. I think that would have made moving around and getting my legs in different positions a bit easier. But, you know, it's not to say that you can't get them. I just think they missed a little trick there. It's keyless ignition. The key operates, well, yes, it's keyless ignition, but also it's keyless entry into the petrol tank because of that. And also, from a luggage point of view, the saddlebags, you can get into those without having to use a key as well. what you can do is centrally lock with a button just on the handlebar here, locks everything around the bike and you can just walk away. For my money, keyless ignition works. It's been around for a good number of years now on cars. It's easy to see it's going to filter down to motorbikes. I don't see why people have a problem with it. I don't see why people are worried about it breaking. You know, things do break, that's unfortunate. But like I say, this technology's been around for a while. I can't see it breaking. Not that often anyway. If it does, it's just a glitch. So when you do dive into the system to find out what's going on with the whiz wheel and the controls and all the rest of it, what you can find is heated grips on 5 settings and your heated rider's seat on 5 settings. And believe me, they go everything from just enough to let you know it's on to, oh my god, my skin's melting, and each increment in between. They work a treat. On the pillion seat, that's operated by a switch which is just at the side of the seat, and that's in 3 settings: off, medium and high, and I'm sure that's just as warm. What else can we talk about? Well, this particular model comes with a radio, and there's also a connection in one of the panniers, the saddlebags, where you can plug in your phone and run your own music through the system. I have to say, and it is from experience, at motorway speeds it ain't worth it. You can't hear it. Maybe if you ride without earplugs you probably could hear it, or if you've got an open face helmet, but from my point of view, my personal experience, wearing earplugs with a full face helmet at motorway speeds, couldn't hear a thing. When you get in sort of 30 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour, 50 mile an hour, yeah, you can hear it. It's powerful, don't get me wrong, but from a motoring, you know, a motorway point of view, nah, I wouldn't waste my money on it. So let's talk about the styling. Well, it's a bagger. So what is a bagger? Well, a lot of it is to do with the actual looks. You have that sort of swept back tail, slightly lower, with some good styling on the bags themselves. What they've done is they've built this bike on an existing platform, being the GT and the GTL. Now there are 2 versions of the bagger. There's the traditional bagger, what this is, and then there's also the, now I want to say this right but I can't remember, it's this something American, and basically what that means is it's a bagger with a top box. So you've got the whole gamut of choice there. You've got a traditional touring bike, the GT, the GTL. The GT doesn't have a top box, the GTL does, and you've got the bagger which doesn't have, and then the something American which does. Both very different bikes in their own right. And who's going to buy the kind of bike, this kind of bike? Well, the way I see it is it's made for people that have grown up with speed, but now they've got to a stage where they want to go touring, but they're just not ready to give up that speed yet, but they want the comfort. So fair play to them. I think this is the right sort of bike for them. And to do it solo. I think this is very much a solo touring bike. If you want to go tour, yeah, get the something American version. But they've not tried to compromise with style. That's the great thing about it. Yes, it has its shortcomings because of the style, but that's the given the world over. You look at, let's say, Jimmy Choo shoes. My God, they're expensive. And people only wear them once or twice a year. And they're completely impractical, but people do it. That's what this is. It's kind of form over function. I like that they decided to do that, give it the style to a certain extent, not worry too much about the practicalities of it. It's not going to be to everyone's taste, and I get the feeling it's not going to be to everyone's taste who likes baggers. It's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde is this bike, because you've got a lot of stuff that's coming from the sporting side of the motorcycling world. Things like the quick shifter. You know, traditionally people wouldn't think that you should have a quick shifter on a bagger. That just doesn't make sense, but it does, because this bike has got so much get up and go about it. The quick shifter just adds to the fun. It has a sporting prowess about it. The tyres, the wheels themselves, the 17-inch wheels, and as you know and I know, the 17 inch is the sports touring go-to size, and I'd hazard a guess that it's probably got the best selection for rubber, so you can pick whatever kind of tyre suits your riding style. That's a smart move. The dashboard itself, I know you can't see it because I've got a camera in the way, but it's pretty clear, especially in the daytime. The dials are nice and big, and you've got the central bit, which I think is LCD. It might be LED, I'm not so sure, but it's definitely nice and bright and crystal clear. Provides you a heck of a lot of information. The problem is when it gets to night times, the centre section still works well, but the outside, particularly the speedo, borderline dangerously unreadable. Having said that, I might have to take that back, because I was very, very tired by the time I started reading those lights at the end of the run. So take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Even though the brakes on this are BMW brakes, which I'm guessing are the Hayes calipers, which the jury's still out on whether people are that enamoured with them or not, they stop. There's a lot of stopping power there. You've got two 320mm meaty rotors and 4-pot calipers, so you're never short of stopping power. And let's not forget, this is a heavy bike. This is just under 350 kilos, or 2.73 Jupiters. That takes a lot of stopping power. But what BMW are good at doing, and they're very clever on this, it's a linked system. But it's a linked system, a linked braking system in the right way. The front fork operates the front and the rear brake. The rear brake pedal just operates the back brake. That's clever. That's the right way to link a braking system. And what BMW have done, because the suspension is so clever, and I'll come to that in a second, BMW have engineered a little bit of fork dive in there, just so that you get the feel. Most of you that have ridden big bikes, certainly from a bagger point of view, will know that fork dive is very prevalent, shall we say. For the most part, BMW's suspension setup has negated that. So let's talk about that suspension. Well, what you've got is BMW's duo lever at the front, and essentially that's a wishbone that helps prevent that fork dive. But what it does is it separates steering and braking. It separates the two, so it never gets out of condition when you're braking. At the rear, you've got an adjustable suspension, which is clever. I like the system, but it's not perfect. You've got essentially two setups to this. You've got cruise and you've got road. Cruise is basically, unless you've got billiard table smooth roads, it doesn't handle things very well. And when you get into the twisties, the whole thing starts to wobble and get out of shape if you're pushing. You know, I know it's not a sports bike, I appreciate that. But having owned, or owning a GSA myself, and knowing how good BMW are with their suspension, I think they could have got it a bit better than what it actually is. The other version is the road mode, where everything is just sharpened up that little bit more. It makes a slight difference, but it's not great. So the suspension can get a little bit out of shape if you're really getting a press on, but for the most part you're not gonna, are you? Because you're just going to be touring and cruising. Power points, and I guess that's important nowadays. Everybody seems to have an awful lot of electronics. Well, you've got two. You've got the usual DIN plugs. There's one just down below the throttle, and there's one just at the back near the pillion seat. Again, DIN. So you've got charging points, but again, like I mentioned before, in the saddlebag you've got a USB port. I don't think that charges, but as far as I know, it's just there to connect for your music. Going back to the dashboard, it's not ugly, and I'm not going to slate it. But having been on bikes now, the BMWs anyway, that have all got TFTs, you can hazard a guess, and I'd like to think if they are going to continue to make this bike, and I hope they do, and the GTs and the GTLs, that one day in the not too distant future we'll see that TFT screen like the one on the R1250 RT, which I think is absolutely superb. I'm not going to slate this one. All I'll say is it just makes it a bit dated. The other thing that makes it a little bit dated as well is that aerial. I mean, come on. It's 2021, you know. That's like the first mobile phone I ever had. That's the aerial off that. Hilarious. The bike itself comes in 3 different colours. You've got this glorious black, and then there's a Hockenheim silver, and then there's a blue as well. But I do particularly like this black. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for black bikes and black cars anyway. It's one of my favourite colours. But this one is, yeah, particularly good looking. And I bet it polishes up absolutely beautifully. Before the light fades, I'm going to see if I can just find somewhere to park up and give you a walk around. No vehicles, no motorbikes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to demonstrate the reverse. So what you do is you put it into neutral. There's a little button just here, reverse, then you press the starter button, and watch this, it goes backwards. If you see it on the dashboard, R, just like that. Very clever. You've got the Xenon headlight, adaptive headlight, and you've got the 2 angel eyes. Well, that's what I like to call them. I think they're fantastic. At the bottom you've got spotlights. When this bike is fully lit up, it's a real presence on the road. And I have to say, again, going back to the experience of doing the 1,000-mile ride, for nighttime driving, it's as good as any car I've driven. It lights up the road like a Christmas tree. Stunning. I think it's a pretty damn handsome bike. I genuinely do. I'm not just blowing smoke up BMW's arse on that. Okay, down at the front then, these are the brakes that we talked about. 320mm discs with your 4-pot calipers, which we think they're Hayes. These are your cornering lights that follow you on the road round. Front tyre, standard 120/70 17s, like we mentioned before. Your spots, the engine, ladies and gentlemen, the BMW 1654cc inline 6. My goodness, what a stonking motor that is. An absolute work of art. Really good sized foot pegs. Talking about the running boards, this is the area where they would sit. So you'd naturally go from there to there for those. It's a shame they've omitted those. Same with the rear. A lot of real estate there for your pillion to get their feet on. That's the heated seat for the rear passenger that I was talking about, and cubby holes, all operated by a central locking button. And now look at these tubes. Come on, look at those cans. 6 exhausts. No wonder it sounds so good. What a belter. And I actually quite like the light design as well. I don't think many bikes could carry something off like that that's that ostentatious, but that just works for me. That genuinely just works. Every angle it just seems to be a good looking bike. There's a lot of thought's gone into this. An awful lot of thought. Like I say, the panniers, they're not big enough to fit a full face helmet in, but that's okay. You could get a good weekend's luggage in there, I have no shadow of a doubt. This particular model, which I think is the LE, actually looking at this, centre stand. But it is shaft drive anyway, so you don't have to worry about chain maintenance. Shaft drive works on a bike like this, no doubt about that. They need things like that. And there's your quick shifter, up and down, with an auto blipper. Dedicated buttons at the side here to switch off your radio volume. There's a source button, depending on what music you want, whether it's your MP3 or radio or other things. You know, I never got a chance to use that really. It was all done by the wheel. I just put the radio in a little bit and forgot about it. There's a memory button, and that's kind of it. The other thing as well is, look at these here, these little beauties. These are one there, and we also have a one there. What they are air scoops. So if you're going along, it's a hot day, all you do is you open up those air scoops, and what it does is it channels the air up through there onto your chest. Simple, but a brilliant idea. I love the attention to detail as well. B, bagger. I mean, come on. Huh? What's not to like? That's the walk around. I'm jumping back on the bike now because I've missed riding it, and I never thought I'd say that after doing 1,000 miles, but I couldn't wait to get back on it again today. Brilliant piece of kit. And what a stunning location as well. Fantastic. Alright, time to get back to Gear Talk HQ. It's funny how you can grow attached to bikes, isn't it? But I always seem to do whenever I've done a bit of time on one. I form some sort of bond. And you know, if you're a biker, you know where I'm coming from, don't you? And it's not, you know, I know this bike's 350 kilos, there or thereabouts, but it's not heavy. Of course it's heavy, but it's well balanced, so you can pick it up off the side stand really easily. There's no sort of drama there. And I love the idea of having a reverse gear as well. That's just it's a pretty cool trick, isn't it? Just listen to this. Oh. Beautiful. There goes the headlights. Yeah, let's do it. Back to HQ. Oh, I did forget to mention as well, because of these handlebars, you can do this. And believe me, when you're on a long journey, being able to stand up whilst you're travelling makes a massive difference. Really gets the blood circulating. I know that you can't, as a general rule of thumb, get a 24-hour test ride on a bike. Hell, you can't even do it in cars. So I'd like to think that I've really got down to the really got down to the nitty-gritty with this baby. And I think I have. I can't really tell you any more than what I've already told you. It's just a great bike. It's a Jekyll and Hyde. It's a beast, it's a pussycat. It's got pieces of technical genius. It's got wonderful design with flaws. It's just a wonderful mixed bag of many different things, and I like it. I like what BMW have done with this. So all that remains to do now is kind of just wind this video up, and I'd like to say thanks for taking the time out to watch the video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing. It would really help the channel out a huge amount. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't, who cares? It's only a video. But leave us a comment in the section below if you've got any questions about the bike that you'd like answering. If you think there's anything that I missed, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to answer it for you. And if we can't answer it, we'll speak to one of the guys at BMW and they'll be able to answer it. I've no doubt about that whatsoever. And also, while we're on the subject of BMW, big shout out once again to our friends and partners at Alan Jeffries in Shipley for providing us, and certainly providing me, for this last 36 hours of this amazing machine. In all honesty, I couldn't have wished for a better bike to do that 24-hour ride on. It was an absolute joy. Thanks for taking the time to watch it. With a bit of luck, crossing the fingers, we'll see you on the next one. Alright, you look after yourselves. Ride safe. See you on the next one. Ta-da! I could spend all day on this bike. Well, I have done. I've got the baboon's arse to prove it.